builders, and you'll hear a lot more about her work through her presentation. So welcome, Nicole.
Thank you very much. All right. So I was really pleased to discover yesterday that my colleague Patricia Roberts from Sun is here in the audience, and she and I did much of the research that I'm going to be talking to you about today. So it's great to have her here. My background is in software primarily. I've spent a lot of time consulting with Sun's Workplace Resources Group, also known as the iWork Group, looking at distance collaboration. And I come at it from the point of view of what are the problems and how can we build technology to really improve and address those problems. So even though I'm going to be talking about 3D virtual worlds, I'm not a gamer. I really came at this from there are business problems to solve, and how could we find the best technology to solve the specific problems that we identified. So one of the things, I'm going to be sharing some data with you that we collected at Sun, and a couple of trends that we saw. One was that was really interesting. In 2007, at Sun Microsystems, which was a highly distributed company, in 2007, there was this tipping point where on any given day, more than 50% of the employees were working remotely. So they were either working from home, at customer sites, or traveling. So that meant that if you were in the office, chances were, better than not, that the people you wanted to collaborate with were not there with you. So that was a really significant sort of point in the company's history. The other thing is that Sun was extremely forward-thinking in terms of work from home. And between 2005 and 2007, the number of home-based employees almost doubled from 5 to 11%. And when I left Sun in 2007, when Oracle acquired the company, I think that number was really closer to about 13%, although I don't have that data. So why did we get involved with virtual worlds? Two things sort of happened simultaneously. I was working with the Workplace Resources iWork group on a study of work from home users, which I'm going to talk a lot more about. And at the time that we were doing this study, a gentleman named Dave Douglas was Sun's Chief Sustainability Officer. And he put out a challenge to the engineering community at Sun, and he said, let's reduce our real estate footprint and build our next building in the virtual world. And that sort of started us looking at virtual world technology. So as Larry was talking about work from home, I have some sort of data to color some of what you heard earlier today. So one thing, there are quite a few benefits from work from home, one of which is that employees are generally more satisfied. So that's certainly nothing to belittle. The other thing is that individuals who work from home accomplish more work than people who are work-based if you just look at it from a productivity output point of view. And they work more hours. They give their commute time to the company, by and large. So those are some really significant benefits, I guess not to mention the cost savings in terms of real estate. But there are also some real serious drawbacks with work from home. So group work tends to suffer, as well as loyalty to the company. And people, I think as Larry was talking about, when you have face-to-face interaction, informal interaction with people, that builds trust. And when you have trust in people, your loyalty to the organization and your sense of belonging to it are much stronger. And there's quite a bit of data in the literature that supports that. So there are a myriad of issues with working from home. So we had done, before we did the study on work from home, we had done an extensive study looking at distributed meetings and what were some of the problems with distributed meetings. So of course, everybody who works from home has the same problems that people have, even if they're in the workplace doing a distributed meeting. The number one problem that people have in distributed meetings is audio quality. they can't hear. There's background noise. They can't understand accented speech very well. It's a strain to hear the audio. People sometimes get out, give a remote presentation, and the person they were giving the presentation to has left the room and they didn't know it. They don't know who they're talking to. They don't know who the people are who are speaking. And we did a little study that even showed that even if you work with people every day remotely, that sometimes you think you know who's talking and you don't. So that's a problem. People who are extroverted personalities, they tend to really suffer work from home. They are lonely, depressed, and their productivity suffers. But probably the most stressful thing for work from home employees is the lack of serendipitous encounters. And like many other people, I don't know how many of you have heard of the virtual world called Second Life, but it was sort of the product that got everybody excited and interested in virtual worlds for business and education, even though it was designed for entertainment. So we did our first project in Second Life, and I had, on my team at Sun, I had 2 home-based employees, and one of them who worked on an island off the coast of Seattle built out our space in Second Life, and we had a mailing list, and he put out on the mailing list, well, if anybody wants to see how it's going, come on, drop in. And in his 7 years of working from home, this was the first time he had ever had a serendipitous encounter with another Sun employee. And that was a really seminal moment for us. And we said, there's something to this technology. He was able to have these informal chats where people just dropped in, saw how he was doing, and he met people that he would not normally have had a chance to meet because his only interactions with other employees were in more formal settings. And then, frustration with being excluded from the hallway chats that go on. People are, they feel like decisions are getting made and they didn't have a chance to have any input there. When we look at the communication tools, one of the issues with instant messaging and email and so forth, they lack what we call a social or emotional bandwidth. Over and over in our work from home study, we heard people tell stories that when they got together with people face-to-face, which happened very rarely in some cases, they found out all these things about the people that they had no idea. So managers found out issues that employees were having, maybe a health concern or sensitive kinds of issues, or it's about some interpersonal relationships that weren't going well. And so what we hypothesize is that the sort of the emotional bandwidth of these other channels of communication, even though the managers were good and they talked to their employees every week, they weren't learning what they learned in the face-to-face conversations. But the biggest problem in my mind, which really gets back to something that Larry said, is that if you want to have an organization that's innovative, you need to have people brainstorm. And the one thing that we found with remote teams is that almost every single one of them stopped brainstorming. And to me, that was probably the most alarming statistic that we had. So that sort of brings me to why virtual worlds. And we really saw virtual worlds as solving some of these work from home issues, in particular distributed team issues sort of in general. So the sense of presence that you get in being with an avatar in a 3D space. And I know many of you in this room deal with physical space, and you know how significant space is to people. And we also, as humans, are very good at suspending disbelief and really feeling like you can really feel in a 3D virtual world that you are in the space with other people. There's a much higher emotional and social bandwidth in this medium, and as I mentioned earlier, you can have serendipitous encounters, and it enables informal interaction. And something that I've studied a lot of conversational theory, and one of the things, when we talk about informal interaction, one important aspect of informal interaction is that conversations divide and converge. So in this meeting, you go talk to somebody, and then somebody might wander over and they join your conversation, then one person breaks off, they go over there. That's informal interaction, and that process of dividing, converging, sort of serendipitously joining a conversation is really important to that trust building that I was talking about earlier. And that is something that happens once people get comfortable in the 3D virtual world. If you have a formal meeting in the space, before and after the meeting, that kind of social interaction starts to happen. 3D space also provides context for collaboration. And some of the executives at Sun were particularly interested in 3D virtual worlds because they felt that with the company being so distributed, that the culture of the company was starting to disintegrate.